So, should you judge her past? Should you judge her past? I feel like, there's a lot of propaganda from the opposing opinions whether you should judge someone's past. Should you judge someone's past? I feel like it's interesting how, as humans, we make exceptions in certain areas or we concede to certain things, but in other areas, it's a complete norm and is completely expected. So, should you judge her past? Of course. Let's get there. Let's get the answer out the way. If you were to go to the bank to get a loan for some money, what's the first thing they're going to do before they give you that money? They're going to look into your past and your spending history to decide the rate that you're going to get on this loan and how much they can lend you. Now, if you flip this analogy to a woman, think about how much you can invest into this person and how safe your asset, which is going to be you and your heart, you know, being at risk or compromising, getting broken, how much are you able to invest into this situation? Should you judge her past? Does a bank judge your past? If you need to buy a house and you need to get a mortgage, they're going to look into your spending history. They're going to look at your track record. It's not to say that it defines the person. However, it's to say it gives you an indication into someone's behaviors. It doesn't say it doesn't mean this is a negative person. It doesn't mean you should judge the content of their character, but you should use it as information to act accordingly. So when someone says, should you judge her past? Are you able to get a house for absolutely free without your past coming into the equation? They're not basing it on you being a bad person if you're not able to get this loan or if you are able to get this loan. They're basing it off of your actions in a particular vertical. Now, in this instance, it will be financially, and with a woman, it will be with sexual encounters or partners. It will give you an indication into their past. How promiscuous are they in certain situations? Now, this should all be not to cast judgment on the other person in a negative or deceitful way, but if anything, it should be to protect your asset. Now, in this instant, the asset that you're protecting is yourself or your heart. Okay. Now, only someone that doesn't have a certain esteem for themselves, or only someone that would be a beneficiary of pushing the narrative that you shouldn't judge the past, is going to tell you any different. If you're somebody that esteems yourself, again, if you're somebody that it has leverage in the situation, you're never going to put yourself in an unfavorable situation. It's not to say that you cannot get with this person, but you're going to be at less risk. Your asset, again, being you, is going to be at less risk with someone whose past isn't checkered with negativity. So I just, this was just complete stream of consciousness and it's something that came to mind. I've not heard anyone else articulate in this way on the internet. And I think, it's just something to consider because a lot of young men will get caught up in a situation where they'll be gaslighted into believing that certain things don't matter. And just because they didn't have the strength of character to resist or even question why you should consider certain things, they end up being the one that gets hurt in the situation. So if you're a young man out there, or even if you're an older guy out there, just always know that you want your asset to be protected. The bank with the loan or the house or the car, they do not give it up. Or if they do, they're checking the past, how you've handled yourself in this situation. It doesn't tell the whole picture, but it does give you an indication into what can potentially happen in the future. It's as close as you're going to get. As humans, I feel like we severely undermine pattern recognition, but we severely overvalue emotions and the control that that can put on you. So, yeah, that's just something to consider. It's something I can extrapolate on further if people find it useful. But I think this would have been something useful for someone to explain to me. And I just want to provide value to people that are thinking the same things or people that are lateral thinkers, thinking outside of the box. Don't let people's emotion sway your decision of pattern recognition and common sense. Should you judge her past? Yes. Should you judge her as an individual and take it personally? Not so much. But again, self interest isn't necessarily always a negative thing. And this is just for the guys to protect themselves. I think the inverse situation is equally as important. So before people come at me and it's not something bashing women, should you judge a man's past? The context is very different, but you potentially should. Because when I said past, and of course I did allude to the sexual side of things, it's not always going to be that. It could be something different. For a man, should you judge his past? If he's just come out of prison for 10 years for something, or something indecent. Maybe it could be down to something financially. That's giving you an indication into how he could potentially operate in the future with you, and you're protecting yourself. So I like the nuance in these situations. And if you got this far in a video, you may have thought, it's just going to be something that is undermining women. But when you flip the situation, it's exactly the same if you're a woman and you're in the same situation with a man. It can give you an indication into how they're going to treat you in the future because you've got the reference points from their past. So don't think that you can just sweep things under the rug. A lot of people think you can. But if you were to, as a woman, if you were to hear that a guy that you'd been with was imprisoned for indecent images of people underage on his computer, are you going to say his past doesn't matter? No. That will allow you to act accordingly. You may have kids, you may have nephews, you may want to have kids in the future. Now you can act accordingly to based on the information you have, and it's completely appropriate. So it's probably going to be titled "Should You Judge Her Past?" But if you're clever enough to get to the end, you'll see that you can flip it. The inverse of the situation is equally as important, and don't be a victim, and don't let people tell you that things are acceptable when your conscience and your core tells you it's not.